Welcome, everyone, to episode 181 of Puppet Masters and Castle Freaks, the internet's leading all things Charles Band podcast. I am one of your hosts, Crisco-zoologist Jared Hornbeck, and I am not coming to you from Newark, New Jersey. I'm not far, honestly, from Newark, New Jersey.
You're not far.
But I'm not coming to you from Newark, New Jersey. And I just want you guys to know I'm real, but I'm not solid. But I am not the only sultry-voiced person who will be dissecting this movie on a call. No, who else is here with me?
I'm Steve Gutley, and I contain the key to my own destruction. Look, while I've got the voice, I might as well use the voice. I might as well lean into it. This is the podcast about disgruntled postal workers, UFO-obsessed cops, and high-powered calculating. That's because this is the podcast about Zarkorr, the Invader, one of Full Moon's 2 attempts at a kaiju universe, and our chance to talk about the very short-lived Monster Island sublabel, one of the last sublabels that we haven't really touched on yet. And we have a preeminent expert in the field of kaiju joining us today to help us find Zarkorr's place in the canon of big giant rubber monsters. Who is joining us today?
This is Zander Cannon. I'm a comic book artist who has done such books as Top 10, Heck, and Sleep from Image Comics. But relevant to today's discussion, I've also done a comic called KAIJUMAX, which is about a prison for giant monsters. And so I've seen, I thought, just about all the monster movies that were out there until somebody told me about Zarkorr the Invader.
Oh, I'm so glad we got to provide that, at least a little bit. I've been a long-time fan of KAIJUMAX in particular. Yeah. It is truly one of the greatest graphic novel series I've ever read. I'm not just saying that. It is one of my very favorites ever. So, like, when we were doing kind of, spitballing guest ideas for certain episodes, like, I thought this was like a long shot kind of cool guest to get, and I was very pleased to find that you were receptive to it, and we're very excited to have you here.
Yeah, Steve was
I'll talk all the time.
Yeah,
I love it.
I'm gonna what about I'm gonna try to get Zander Cannon for this, and I was like, shit, yeah, do it. Like, let's do it. That's the best. That's been one of the best things about doing the show so far has been, I think Steve and I started it and we were like, yeah, we're going to talk about movies. And I think when we did the first few episodes, we're like, maybe one day we'll have a guest. Like,
yeah, someday there'll be a guest.
Any guest. And now we're just like at the point where we're like, oh, we need to get Scorsese on the phone, but get him on the phone.
Get him on the phone.
Yeah, we're just like, cool. We're just like cool with asking anybody now. And it's great because everybody says yes. It's awesome.
Scorsese said maybe, but he's carving
his
up
people said
space
no.
meat in a trailer in The Mandalorian right now. So,
from the opposite end, it's interesting because it's like, when you're a comic book artist, it's like, well, yeah, maybe people would have you on, but like having done KAIJUMAX and having this sort of like little bit of like, oh, he's a kaiju expert, which is I'm absolutely not, but it's like, but I have that sort of like aura about me that it's like, well, he's seen a bunch of monster movies, so it's like, yeah, okay, I'll come in and talk about monsters movies any old time.
Well, and yeah, it's the character designs in your comic are original, but they are harkening back to this very long history of kaiju movies. Most of your graphic novels would end with a recommendation of an obscure kaiju movie that you could check out, and an obscure prison movie maybe to check out, because you're dabbling in both worlds. So you're definitely versed in the universe more so than we are. Our purview tends to be teeny tiny terrors. We're talking about killer puppets. We're talking about ghoulies. We're talking about all kinds of little squirmy things. So this is actually our first opportunity to talk about kaiju movies entirely. So I guess, yeah. And Jared, you and I don't really talk about it much, like outside of this. What's your history with kaiju?
It's weird. It's like there's so much of it and there's so many iterations. Where it really started for me had to be seeing those Gamera Mystery Science Theater 3000s.
Yeah, for sure.
Those were my real interest. I mean, I knew what Godzilla was. Like, I was aware of it, but I didn't really know those movies in particular. And it wasn't until Godzilla versus Megalodon and those Gamera movies, and the Godzilla, I think, versus Mechagodzilla, which was also a Mystery Science Theater. Those ones were the ones, like, to me, like the number one like kaiju movie that I watched over and over and over again as like a 12-year-old was Gamera versus Giron, because it was my
the classic.
It was my favorite Mystery Science Theater one of all the Gamera movies. And they kind of followed the Godzilla format, and where it was like the first one like was black and white and it was drenched in shadow. And then as they went on and they were made in the later 60s into the early 70s, they were shot mostly in interiors that looked like the inside of a Howard Johnson's.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's kind of what it was. And then I found, I went back, the original Godzilla I have a lot of love for. There's been different iterations. I know the King of Monsters or Destroy All Monsters is one too.
Yeah, that's like a big
I know
brawl.
one that people don't like, which was the Godzilla 1985, which I remember the poster for from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But then, there was the one in 2014, which was kind of like a reboot.
Shin
And I will
Godzilla,
say,
yeah.
Godzilla -1, real
incredible.
awesome.
Yeah,
I think it's funny when Godzilla -1 and like the original Godzilla comes up and people are they're like, wasn't that fantastic? And it's like, yeah, it was a good movie, but that is absolutely not why I go see a monster movie. Like, I don't want to see a good movie. Like, I just want to see some good smashing and some good monster designs, and like hopefully something weird happens. And it's like those movies are like, oh no, like we're trying to like have character development and stuff. It's like, yeah, all right, that's fine. I mean, it's fine for you, but
yeah,
tell me when there's going to be something weird happening.
There's definitely that. Like I shamefully only saw the original Gojira this year because I've been like fascinated. I love the imagery of like kaiju movies. I love a giant monster. Like I love kind of the ephemera surrounding it, but I've never really done the deep dive just because it always seemed like Godzilla in particular always seemed like such an impenetrable universe. Like there's so many movies and they're wildly different tones and the lore is just insane, and it goes from like deeply serious to wildly silly, like on a movie to movie basis. And now I watched the original Godzilla. I think it is kind of a low-key masterpiece. Like I was surprised at how like smart and skillfully made and like actually moving it was. And so that's kind of kicked me off, and I've started like going through the Godzilla series in order. So I'm starting to watch each one. I'm going to try and get all the way caught up because I'm digging it, and I've really been loving what the modern kaiju movie has become too. Like you mentioned, Xander, it's like we're in a weird place where we're having our cake and eating it too, but like things have sort of flip-flopped. Like there's an American Godzilla universe and there's a Japanese Godzilla universe. The Toho Japanese Godzilla universe has become prestige art films that win Oscars, and the American version has become like the goofy trash of like big monsters punch each other and knock cities over. Like it's funny the way that the torch has kind of been passed in that way, and I'm not sure what exactly it says about the global film market, but I'm on board for it. I like that we get both flavors.
Right. Yeah, it's nice to have both, and you don't have to say one's better than the other or whatever.
Well, I mean, if we want to talk prestige kaiju movie, Steve, why don't you give us a little fire off some stats about Zarkorr the Invader?
Well, I'd be happy to. Zarkorr, that's 2 R's, by the way, and an exclamation point. The Invader. It was released in April of 1996. It's directed by Aaron Osborne and Michael Deak, and it's written by Neil Marshall Stevens, who is once again using his nom de plume Benjamin Carr. And this stars Reese Pugh, Deprise Grossman, Mark Hamilton, Charles Schneider, Tori Lynch, Franklin Villette, Don Yannon, Peter Looney, and John Paul Fedele as Zarkorr. So this is one of the first of 2 movies from one of Full Moon's smallest, ironically, sublabels, Monster Island. Monster Island Entertainment. This is a very short-lived brand that was focused entirely on kind of reviving the kaiju movie, which is pretty antithetical to what Full Moon usually does. As we said, it's a lot of little guys. Charles Band loves a little guy skittering around and causing havoc. I guess I should ask you, Xander, do you have much experience with Full Moon movies in general? Like, are you very versed in this universe?
No, not at all. I mean, I can't say I haven't seen any of their movies, but I wasn't familiar with that they were sort of like a label.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but yeah, it's we talk a lot about growing up as like video store kids, so we would just kind of peruse the local like mom and pop video store and just memorize all the boxes. And so that's most of where our early exposure to Full Moon came from, was just like seeing these really striking like VHS boxes of these trashy looking horror movies and just kind of being curious and titillated, and then deciding as men in our 40s to start digging into it again. So,
What I
you know,
love
why not?
about the conceit of Monster Island Entertainment is it's really as simple as that. It's
Yeah.
like Mike Deek was working on like a creature design for a, you know, kaiju type movie. He said, you know, Charlie, we work in these tiny terrors. We don't really have any big monster movies. I was thinking about shooting some monster stuff, and Charlie's band is just like, great, cool. You shot some monster stuff. I'll make a movie around it. But now we have a sub label.
Exactly that. Yeah, he rolls with it, even if this isn't necessarily his bailiwick. But you mentioned Michael Deek. He's an important guy to highlight for this movie. We've talked about him many times because he was kind of the head of the special effects department of Full Moon for their golden era run, which is like 1989 to 1994.
And when there were like large characters to be played, they were generally played by him. Like he was
Yes,
the cellar dweller.
He's a 6'6" gentleman,
Oh,
you know, so and he's got a big broad build, and so he fits well into a monster suit. Yeah, and he does that quite often. Yeah, he decided to put together a little 10-minute kaiju film called Marlin Man about a giant killer fish. And he made it just in his backyard and just kind of as a proof of concept. And Charles Band loved it. And he gave him a budget of $40,000 to shoot some monster footage, which he was able to cut some corners by using his buddy's soundstage for a couple of days. And then meanwhile, you know, this is kind of echoing the style that a lot of those early Toho movies were made in. There's what they call like an effects unit, and then there's what they call a live action unit. So there's a team that's shooting monster action. They're shooting men in rubber suits stomping on miniatures and like exploding and things like that. And then you have the live action unit, which is shooting the wraparound plot that all of these movies always include, just to try and like anchor it in something.
And I'm going to put it really succinctly for this movie. You have Michael Deek, who is directing someone in a Zarkorr rubber monster suit knocking over a bunch of, you know, miniatures and cardboards in this Newark, New York miniature set that they built. And then you have Aaron Osborne directing what I feel was supposed to be the X-Files Northern Exposure crossover episode.
Absolutely. Yeah, very much so. Like, yeah. We have Aaron Osborne is a Roger Corman guy, mostly. And he kind of like jumped the fence to come over and work on this movie and just shoot the live action sequences, which I think took him about like 6 or 7 days, you know. But they had this script by this hot young screenwriter named Neil Marshall Stevens. This is the first time that he worked for a Full Moon movie, but it is far from the last. He's probably written more than half of all of the movies that we've covered, if we're being honest. Like, he's incredibly prolific, and this is where he got his start.
And he dips into the mainstream too, because he's a guy, he wrote the 2001 13 Ghosts movie.
Right. Yes. Yeah, so, you know, the two directors were not in super close conversation with each other, and I think
you don't say.
Yeah, I know. I don't mean to blow the minds, but the two subplots of this movie don't have a whole lot in common with each other. But yeah, they still were able to like tie this all together in a couple of months. I don't think this movie was a big hit. I don't think it was very well regarded, but apparently Charles Band did deliver on his promise to make one of the biggest posters that they've ever made for this movie, which he gifted to Michael Deek. It takes up an entire wall, so you know, that's cool.
Nice. Yeah.
But yeah, they gave it one more try with a movie called Craw the Fish Monster, is it Craw the Sea
Monster?
Sea Monster, excuse me, which we'll cover at another time. But yeah, so there are two major threads here. I think the first thing we should talk about, since he arrives very early in the movie with a lot of fanfare, is Zarkorr himself. And I just kind of want to go around the table. What do we think of Zarkorr as a character, as a design, as a kaiju?
I mean, I guess I felt like, I mean, it looked nice. Like, you know, you look back at certain things like Gorgo or some, you know, other sort of like off-brand kaiju, and it's like, oh, you know, I think he's better than that. Like, you can't see like wrinkly fabric, or, you know, it doesn't, there's nothing sort of like immediately obvious that sort of like, you know, marks it as being like the wrong scale or anything. But but I also didn't find him particularly memorable. It just was sort of like if I was going to have to draw him from memory, I'd be like, I don't know, he's horns, you know. I don't really remember much about him, and it was all shot in the dark, you know, in darkness too. Like, I thought several days go by, but they only seem to get a picture of him at night. So
There was a real disconnect between the activities that the monster was taking place in and the rest of the world. Like the rest of the world seemed to be like not entirely sure that he existed or this was actually happening, despite him being a 60-story tall monster rampaging through California in 1996 when the news existed. So like yeah, there's a bit of a disconnect there. Yeah, I enjoyed the design. I think he's kind of a svelte Godzilla with a bit of a beak and then just really prominent long horns, like closer to like dragon horns or like bug antenna than they are to like demon horns.
Godzilla is way more, I never thought about this before, but Godzilla is way more pear-shaped.
Yeah, Godzilla thick. Godzilla thick. You know, it's okay. We can objectify him. Yeah. Sometimes her.
And Zander is right. It's like the stuff that's happening in the beginning where Zarkorr is first kind of like stomping around the city is very obscured by shadow. It's hard to really get a sense of all the details of the character design. And it wasn't even really, that's why I kept hoping there was a real, when are they going to get to the fireworks factory feeling of like, I want more Zarkorr because I don't know what Zarkorr really looks like.
Yeah.
And I needed there to be. And then when he started shooting like lasers and stuff, it was like, okay, it was lit a little bit more. And you can see some specific details of the suit. But I do, I don't know, something like this. There is a charm to this. Like I did find Zarkorr's design charming. Like,
oh, yeah. I think that despite this movie not being very good, it is pretty charming. Like I was never sort of like checking my watch. Like it was it's like, okay, it's just silly, and it's like this dialogue isn't going to win any awards, but like the characters were fairly well sort of like delineated, and yeah. I mean, I thought the funny thing is like, of course, I haven't seen these movies, any of these movies before, but like when they open on that, I think a ranch or something like that, and it's all very obviously miniatures.
Yeah.
It always seemed like, there's a ton of movies now where they'll open on like the miniatures and they give you just a second to sort of maybe register that this isn't real stuff, and a hand comes in or a cat walks over it or something like that. So I really thought that was going to happen.
You thought it was like kind of a Beetlejuice fake out. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Exactly.
Right.
Like
Like,
tarantula and Beetlejuice crawling on the house.
It's like, nope. It was like, we're dead serious. This is actually a ranch in California or whatever.
And I don't know if you guys remember this. This is kind of a really specific reference. I know that's very shocking to be coming from me on this show, but like, do you guys remember the old like the miniature town set that the camera used to zoom through for the HBO original feature like bumper? Because that is what this looks like when it's doing the Newark, New Jersey, and the camera's swelling in.
It does, and it's better than I thought it would be. Like more complete, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
It reminded me. I think it's done even better than that in Shrunken Heads. Shrunken Heads has some really cool. Shrunken Heads, if you don't know, Xander, is a full moon movie that was written by Matthew Bright, who was one of the like Oingo Boingo guys and wrote Freeway, and it was directed by Richard Elfman, who's the brother of Danny Elfman. And Danny Elfman comprised the like main title theme for it. And there's a whole like camera flying through over the town of miniatures, and it looks really good.
Well, I hate to break it to you. You have seen it because that is the exact footage they used in this movie. That is the.
What's funny? I was thinking it looked a lot like it. I think
that's it. It was.
I think maybe it was just looked better on film for.
It definitely
Heads with a little more money behind it.
It definitely looked better in that movie, but they were recycling the footage for those aerial shots, which
I was gonna say that's what made me think of.
Yeah. But I think I was kind of caught up with the charm of all of it. I kept thinking about these miniatures and how like there is more craft to building a destructible city than people kind of give credit for, because you can't just have like it flatten like a cardboard box or like a crumble and nothing comes out. Like you have to kind of set up your models to be destroyed in a specific way. And I think they did a pretty good job of that. Like the fact that I was thinking about that watching this, I'm like, oh yeah, they've got like little desks in the office building that you can see. And it's you got little cars in there. You're like, yeah,
Yeah,
was
I mean, I've seen it done worse in like kaiju movies that everybody loves.
yeah,
You know, like
absolutely. Yeah. I'm only up to Godzilla meets Mothra, so I'm not very far into my series yet, but I've already seen some major ups and downs because Godzilla versus King Kong is in there,
oh yeah,
which
yeah.
is really rough and has so much blackface. Is a very
Oh
tough
yeah,
movie
yeah.
to watch.
Well, that's a whole thing. Yeah, yeah.
That's a whole other thing. But yeah, so that one looked much shoddier than like even the follow-up movie or the one before it. So yeah.
I don't ask you for this very often, Steve, but I'm going to put you on the spot because I feel like you'd be better prepared off the top of your head. What is this plot synopsis of this movie? And I want you to say what it is for a reason, because it'll lead us into kind of what I think are some of the quirks of this story. So what really is, yes, there's a giant monster who is destroying a city, but what is the plot of this movie?
Well, to sum it up succinctly, it's what if Frailty was a wacky comedy? Because that's or Bugonia or something like that. They're playing off of that trope, but so it's the movie opens with a postal worker in Newark, New Jersey, who is visited by a tiny teenage girl, which is kind of a reference to the little psychic twins in the Mothra movies. This little hologram that shows up and is like a harbinger of the future. And she says that he has been chosen to fight the monster Zarkorr, which has arisen from a mountain in California, because he is the most perfectly average human being alive. He's Luke Wilson in Idiocracy. And he basically takes on this mission. He needs to kidnap a female scientist on the news by using a gun. He was able to convince a police officer that he's telling the truth, so the police officer joins him. And then they team up with a wacky mad scientist engineer who's in a wheelchair because teenagers hit him with a car. They have to develop some kind of weird super weapon and take down this 180-foot tall monster that is rampaging somewhere.
It has to be a super weapon because, as we learn from the little tiny, I don't know what you would call her. Like, what does he call her? Like a mall slut? He says
something.
A mall tramp.
Mall tramp.
And he calls her that twice. It's not like he just came up with it. Like I thought that's rude. She just looks like a teenage girl.
Yeah. She very pointedly, though, in an aside, which sounds like she's Bubba from Forrest Gump talking about shrimp, where she's just naming all the weapons that won't kill him. That won't kill him. None of your earth weapons are not knives or swords or guns or lasers.
Or nuclear weapons. I like that she's like knives and nuclear weapons in the same list.
Yeah.
It could be one or the other.
It's you're covering the spectrum right from the get-go. It's like, okay, pebbles, nukes, pebbles, nukes.
I enjoy a reluctant kind of put upon hero, and I did kind of find like this character could be very annoying, but it was also, I don't know, something about it worked to make him like the world's wimpiest mailman, as like he's described as like the median human or something like that, which I thought was really funny.
That specificity of the science fiction concept that he's like, they've like calculated it out and he's exactly in the middle.
Yeah,
he's like half of them would be better at this than you are, and half would be worse.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, Zander, if you were wondering, we were talking about reused sets from miniatures from Shrunken Heads for that.
Yeah.
All of this giant prop silverware and bowls and all that is left over from a movie called Dollman versus Demonic Toys.
Oh, I do. I haven't seen it. I do know that one, but
familiar with the concept.
Yeah, I remember watching that scene and being like, oh yeah, these are kind of nice. Like, I always like a movie that has like, oversized props to make somebody look like a gremlin or something.
Oh yeah, no, these forced perspective kind of tricks are always like super fun, and I love when they do that.
She threw the pencil, and then it cuts to him, and the little pencil, bunks on the table.
Absolutely. I mean, the human side of the movie is very silly. It's very disposable. It's playing off one of the peak mid 90s tropes of the time, which is the disgruntled postal worker. Which actually inspired me to look into that a little bit, because I remember hearing all the jokes when I was like a kid, but I didn't know what this was all in reference to. I was like, wait, is there like an outsized number of shootings in the postal service? And yes, there was. multiple incidents, upwards of 80 something deaths over the course of like 20 years, involving postal workers killing employees of the post office. So much so that the phrase, of course, going postal came from this kind of concept. But I think that story had been circulating so much, that term going postal, and then the term disgruntled, which I've only ever really heard in like conjunction with postal worker. Like maybe just growing up as like a Simpsons fan or whatever. Like I just, that's how I associate
I thought you were going to say, as a Simpsons fan, the only other time you heard it was disgruntled goat.
Disgruntled goat. Yeah, exactly. Disgruntled goat, which is just kind of a play on that. Whatever reason that word was being thrown around a lot in conjunction with these stories, and late night hosts and SNL, they really seized on that, and it just became this thing.
Well, let me ask you guys then how you feel about this, because one thing about the human side of this, I mean, obviously I feel like less compelling than a giant rubber monster kicking over miniatures, which is really what you sign up for with a movie like this. And you look at the poster and it's like the amount of like carnage that you're given is very small compared to the runtime of the movie, which itself is only 75 minutes. But I did find there was a lot of what I imagine to be quite intentional humor with the human interactions. I don't think it was like bad or lazy or stilted writing per se. I think there was a real attempt to make a lot of these characters like very offbeat. Like that was also a very 90s thing, like Erie, Indiana, or like even here's a one, like sometimes like a character from Hey Vern, It's Ernest or something like that.
Right.
Like it was to make them very, there was a really funny exchange where the one cop is being held at gunpoint and he's threatening to shoot the other cop. The other cop is like, don't shoot him, pleading with him to shoot him instead. Don't shoot him. Like he's like a brother to me. He means too much to me. Shoot me instead. It's like, what a funny exchange. Like, and that's all purposeful. Like that's not, you know, that isn't like he's someone writing who doesn't understand how humans interact. Like, I think there's a lot of intentional comedy, the way that the cryptozoologist doctor character said her lines, the way that the other like bitchy news anchor talked about her, like I don't know, like I kind of felt like there was a quirkiness to them that was very purposeful. And I think, you know, the dark side of that is Twin Peaks, and then you get Northern Exposure and other shows like that. But I felt like in the 90s it was like we really liked offbeat characters like that.
Yeah, I agree, and I thought they all worked. I thought the one that worked the least was the offbeat scientist guy or hacker guy, because it's like he was a little bit too much of a. I mean, it's like he just kind of chewed the scenery a little bit, you know. And you're just like, all right, you know, like we get it. You're a weirdo.
He wasn't playing it as
he
wasn't playing it as someone who was like genuinely disturbed. He was playing it to the back row. You know, he was doing big kind of vaudeville style mugging. Which like that's
they must
fine,
have asked him for, you know, like
hey, it's a lot of I think most of the cast here were just part of this like local kind of experimental comedy troupe in LA at the time. So
and it comes through.
They bring some weird energy, which is fun.
I'm not going to say it's like brilliant material that they're working with, but there definitely were character touches and flourishes that were given to them where I'm like, some care was given to this and some thought was given to it. It wasn't just very stilted kind of expositional dialogue. Like, and then there was just, I don't know, there were scenes that were made me laugh. There was a very, what was the name of the postal worker character, the main guy?
Oh, I'm forgetting his name.
I think we all, we all wrote down just like mailman.
I'm literally like I just thought of him as mailman.
He's got like, you know, he's so kind of put upon, and he's not sure if he wants to do this, but then all of a sudden he's got this moment where it's very much like a George McFly, Darth Vader came from planet Vulcan and told me that if I don't kill Zarkorr, he's going to melt my brain. So like I have to do this. Like I've been tapped to do this kind of thing. I don't know. I had some fun with it. And I think it was also my biggest gripe is that we spend too much time there and not enough time with the monster itself.
Yeah.
Like,
I had gotten used to them and their like interplay. And so I thought it was a little jarring when they did the thing where they're like, we need to change into like fake, you know, feds, you know, uniforms and go and pretend to be FBI agents or whatever they were.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought that was a little jarring. Yeah.
This movie is a very lean 75 minutes long. You know, I'm willing to bet there was a good amount left on the cutting room floor, or you know, maybe not. Maybe they didn't have time for that much trimming, and they just shot what they could shoot. But there are some gaps. There are some narrative jumps, and again, it really cannot be overstated how little the Zarkorr stuff seems to affect the plot of the other thing. First of all, they're on opposite sides of the country, so there's inherently little tension there.
That was a strange choice. Where it seems like they could set the early part anywhere, especially since it's supposedly coming for him. You know, like you'd think that it would start him closer.
It's so weirdly, pointedly Newark, New Jersey.
Very specifically Newark. Like
many references to Newark Airport.
Like I don't even think any of the post office shooting incidents happened in New Jersey. I think it was like California and Michigan. So like, I don't know what that choice was really. But I guess maybe if they wanted to infuse it with kind of like a road trip movie, maybe now it's like Sugarland Express, and they've got the cop and like there are little elements of that. But it didn't really feel super cohesive. And then there also just didn't seem to be a lot of agreement on how much they were going to acknowledge the existence of Zarkorr. Like there was a news report that people saw and were reacting to, but there were a lot of people thinking that like it didn't seem to, they seemed to think that this craziness was coming out of nowhere, or that it was unmotivated. And I'm like, there's a giant monster, right? His name's Zarkorr. He's an invader.
And if you listen to our episode from, I don't know, a month and a half ago on the 1977 movie End of the World with Christopher Lee, we discussed how like it doesn't really make for great dramatic stakes when you're just kind of like looking at a screen and saying, oh, something catastrophic is happening in California, and you're nowhere near California.
Right. Yeah. It's just kind of an odd narrative choice. And I understand like, all these movies have these limitations. And I think, we watch a lot of these movies. A great deal of them are not terribly good. They were made in haste and with a lot of inexperienced people. And so sometimes what you have to kind of judge it on is just vibes and intent. And I feel like this movie has kind of pleasant vibes and good intentions. I think it is really specifically trying to be kind of a love letter to this genre. Like it's not full of like the deepest cuts or anything, but it understands the language of these movies at least a little bit, which I appreciated.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Good.
I think in the 90s, a direct-to-video, might have leaned into being raunchy or like, having a lot of weird violence or stuff like that, but or having the jokes be really sort of like pointed and mean. But it's like, no, it's kind of it's pretty PG. I don't really remember anything that would mark it as anything else. But like, yeah, so I thought that's an easy way to get people on your side, I think, if you're making a not very good but kind of funny movie.
Yeah. And it's just there's some odd editing choices and things like that that could have been smoothed out, but I do always respond to this sort of narrative of like, okay, this guy's being given this mission from a higher power. He doesn't necessarily fully understand it. He might be going insane, but he also feels compelled to follow up on it, and having that ambiguity that you're playing with. And I think this movie, with some simple re-editing, could become that, and like you can have an interesting sort of like late stage reveal. The problem is we see Zarkorr in second one. Like the movie starts rolling, I don't think we even get any credits or anything like that. We get a mountain exploding and out comes Zarkorr. So there's no ambiguity about whether or not this thing is really happening, and so it just kind of deflates a little bit of the tension for me. But
there's never a feeling like, oh, maybe he is crazy, which you could have done when he's at the TV station, because he is acting crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean it's a Close Encounters thing. There are ways to like work with this idea and make it a compelling narrative.
Well, you know what you guys sound like to me? You sound like some kind of goddamn question askers.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That was a good line. I did like that line, a bunch of question askers.
Question askers.
This is a very intentionally funny line. Like that was, again, like, yeah, I think there was some care in the script, and it's like, I think the intentionality is good. But like to reference, I don't obviously consider this anywhere near like bottom of the barrel. I like what they were going for. They don't really deliver on the promise of a lot of Zarkorr in this movie, but there's some fun to be had in the trim and lean 75-minute runtime. But Steve, did you catch the Savage Island reference?
Oh yeah, when they're talking about the Linda Blair prison movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a
So
cut to
Savage
make,
Island is a movie. Well, that's not factually correct. I don't know if I can call Savage Island a movie.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
a thing.
It's together parts of several movies.
Yeah, it's like an interstitial, talk about disjointed things where like Linda Blair goes to seek revenge on like a super rich guy and like a big in his office in a giant like building, and then it cuts back to she's like, you know why I'm here, right? And then it cuts to footage from like women in prison movies that are supposed to be her story, but from completely different pre-existing movies.
Remember when I was in this sexy women's prison and we all spoke Italian and also I wasn't there? Kind of that.
I had a real moment where I was just like, is that that was a moment of bewilderment to me where I was like, is that a Savage Island reference? And another thing I wasn't expecting starting this movie, because the version I watched was actual 75 minutes on Prime.
Yeah.
The version that's on the Full Moon app is we've got our old friend, Mr. Frame Rate.
Yeah, Xander, this is
92 minutes.
This is a weird thing we've encountered a couple of times. Like some of these movies will appear on streaming services in a much longer runtime, and it's because they literally slow the frame rate to pad out the runtime. We're not entirely sure why or who's doing it.
And does it feel like they're in slow motion or something?
It does,
sure does.
but it's like subtle enough that you like don't pick up on it unless you have the comparison point. But like after it was like revealed to us, and like now anytime a movie is over 90 minutes, we check it, we double check, and we make sure it's like, okay, what's the actual runtime of this? Because 90 minutes is David Lean-esque. Like we need to cut this down.
Right, and I think you could have added 15 minutes of monster smashing and no one would have complained one bit.
Would have been great. Yeah. I mean, this is missing one of the big things that you need for a kaiju, man. It's not like necessarily a requirement, but for the certain type of kaiju movie that this one is emulating, you need another big monster. You need another big guy to smash into.
Yeah.
And that is something that we're missing here. Of course, this is going to be followed by Kraw the Sea Monster, so maybe that was something that they were setting up as a future crossover. There's certainly a lot of potential for that, but
I mean, you also need reaction shots. You need like cutaway shots of people going, "Oh," and looking up at
Zarkorr.
the destruction that's happening. Yeah, I mean, that's the hallmark of those.
Yeah, and it would have been nice to have. I mean, I think that there, a lot of the old Toho movies kind of figured out a clever way of integrating those things so that they didn't have to do too much sort of the bad special effects, bad sort of like superimposed special effects. They would have a shadow loom over somebody and then and then have them step on them in like a wide shot or something.
Yeah.
One of the things that I thought, well, again, I'm mentioning Gorgo, I felt that was a really clever way. They had two monsters in that movie, an adult version and a baby version, and so they just used the same suit twice, but they made different size buildings for the monster to rampage around. And I always thought that was such a clever workaround. It seems like it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other as to whether it's easier to build another suit or another couple sets, but that was the choice they made, and I thought that was kind of a clever way to do it.
Yeah, I forgot about Gorgo. Gorgo is one I've seen. I've seen the Mystery Science Theater, but that's the one that has Dr. Haywood Floyd from 2001 in it, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think you're totally right. I think 10 more minutes of monster smashing, some carnage, some destruction, some cutaway shots, bystanders, maybe a couple casualties. Although I know that we're keeping this thing pretty PG, pretty kid friendly. I think it could have turned into something really, I know I've used the phrase offbeat a few times in this, but it could have been a really quirky offbeat kaiju movie. It's just there's so little of Zarkorr in the movie. That's my biggest nitpick from it. But you know what? When the movie started, there was a Film Rise logo. So this is Prestige
Yes.
Entertainment, and we are wrong for nitpicking.
Of course.
correct.
Yeah, every
Yeah.
time, every time. No, I mean, this is kind of in the right sweet spot of a bad movie for me. It's short. It's at least a little self-aware. It's infused with at least a little bit of good-natured charm, and yeah, just doesn't overstay its welcome. So yeah, I can give a modest recommendation for Zarkorr. I don't think you need to seek it out, but if you are a fan of this type of movie, I don't think you're going to be done dirty. You know, you're
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I thought what was it? The Rotten Tomatoes is like 18% or something like that. It's like, that seems harsh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's about right, but it also seems harsh.
It is. It's like, yeah, you're right, but you know, you don't have to say it, you know. Yeah, it's one of those things. Like, yeah, you could have thought about more Zarkorr's feelings.
There's intention behind a lot of this stuff. There's some love and some care and some craft and some creativity. There are things to find in this movie that you can say positively about it. Number one being kick-ass fucking original theme song.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I did really enjoy that.
The theme song at the end slaps so hard. It's by Fusby Morse, who did he did a bunch of original scores for Full Moon and Empire movies. He did the score for Stuart Gordon's Dolls. He did a couple other things that we've covered too. And it says vocals with someone who shares the same last name as our male lead. And I don't want to assume that they just outsourced that job to his wife or girlfriend, but dude, the Zarkorr song is so fun. It starts with it's exactly what you want in like a monster song. It's got some surf guitar. It sounds like it's going to be the Monsters theme for a second.
Oh man, I guess I must have turned it off, or I wasn't, or maybe it muted it or something like that. I gotta go check that out again. Because I really do love a surf rock like monster movie theme song, because I feel like that is sort of like an underappreciated connection, you know, because all the best Godzilla sort of like late 60s 70s stuff was like all had surf rock in it. It was like so discordant, like as a match. I love it.
Because also the mid 60s, especially when you think of like when the first Godzilla, first Gamera, those movies were coming. I mean, it was like those movies were coming out and being huge. And then all of a sudden it was like Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello movies at the same time, who were people just dancing on a beach. And so it's like that surf rock, surf guitar, you know, like Dick Dale and the Deltones type stuff. This has got a little more like I said, it started, and I was thinking for a second, I was like, Jack Marshall is going to get some royalties for this being
right
used. It's not the Munsters theme song, which also rips, by the way, but like,
oh yeah,
this Zarkorr song was so fun. It was like probably the best like original thing we've encountered, to the point where we got to clip it for the end of this episode during instead of our theme for the fade out.
All right, remind me.
Some of the Vicious Lips songs were pretty great too.
Yeah. And I was reminded a lot of the Power Rangers themes as well, like which is in reference.
Great pull, and
like,
I didn't even think of that, and you're 100% right.
Yeah, like is it tokusatsu? Is that the genre of like kind of giant fighting robots? You know, so it's kind of pulling from the same tradition. You know, it's not exactly a kaiju thing, but it is. Yeah, it's pulling from the same tradition. Yeah, it's just fun. Yeah, and I'm definitely adding it to my wedding playlist. Like,
yeah, that's right.
Which is not unusual if you see how weird my wedding playlist is. But,
I can only imagine.
It's pretty anthemic, and it's pretty easy to sing along to. Like the Zarkorr chorus is like, it hits. And if you just tell everyone, hey, okay, guys, just when I say you're going to say the word Zarkorr, it'll be a pretty great, a pretty great moment, again, like gang vocal moment, like a New York City hardcore.
Oh my God. Yeah, see, exactly. Yeah. I'm dying to see my fiance's 104-year-old grandma just shout Zarkorr, you know. It'd be great.
Totally.
It'd be great.
I'm curious about this, Zander, as someone who's a comic book artist. And you said like you wouldn't call yourself a kaiju expert, but you have this graphic novel. You're obviously pulling from art styles, iconography, stuff like that. So like, what are kind of the main, like what are the characteristics that you were sure to pull into that book? Like, what is it like? What translates best into like panels from, let's say, something on screen?
Well, I mean, one of the things is I always wanted to make sure that that all the monsters looked like they could be a person in a suit. You know, that they weren't, they weren't spiders or anything like that. You know, that they were always kind of like, and so therefore just kind of based on, just kind of sort of with the serial numbers scratched off, just these other monsters that, but also like, and not to be afraid to make them silly, like none of them had to look tough or cool. Like I just to be like, they'll look ridiculous. So that's fine. But yeah, I always, again, it's like I didn't want to make it like the 90s ones or more recent ones that were sort of like actually threatening or actually kind of scary. I wanted to be like this. These are all extremely silly, and all of the storytelling sort of choices that I was making were all very sort of like matter of fact. Like there weren't going to be a lot of dramatic sort of like Dutch angles or anything. I wanted to really just sort of say, here's a shot that shows head to toe this monster walking around, so that you really understand that is what is happening. That that like, and it's not a cartoony world. It's just a cartoony monster in a more or less realistic world.
And that's kind of the magic trick of that series, is that like we just sort of accept that this species just happens to look like giant men in rubber suits, like, but they are real creatures and they have real pathos and real emotions that you actually get invested in, and like you stop thinking about them as like guys in rubber suits for a while, while never losing that design.
Right. And and the nice thing is, because it's such a silly concept, that I could play it pretty straight, and like every time that they're like picking up a phone, it's like it's always going to be like a cell phone tower, or or they're drinking a beer. Well, it's a beer truck, or that kind of stuff. Like it was very easy to just, like, I kind of wanted to have a certain joke density per page, and so it was kind of nice to that it's like it was kind of built in, even when you're telling a story that's ostensibly serious.
And you have that same conflict happening, like again going back to modern kaiju movies, where it's like the silly and the sublime. The serious themes like that you just need to accept involve a gigantic monster, like it is impossibly large and breathes fire, but it's also teaching us about imperialism. Like we get to learn all these. It's kind of the amazing balancing act that this genre has been striking in recent years. I mean, I guess it's kind of baked into the genre as a whole, but it's just kind of that amazing thing that you get to play with.
Yeah, that is so super fun to be able to sort of start off from an absurdist, at 100, and then I always felt like my natural style as a writer or a storyteller is always brings down the party, like let's bum everybody out, and so it was nice because you get to meet in the middle, kind of 50%.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great way to think about it. Yeah, I tend to find the same thing anytime I'm writing. I'm like, oh man, this is a bummer.
People are gonna like this. What am I doing?
Yeah, maybe I make this just a Pokemon knockoff. There you go. Yeah. Now it's happy. Now it's fun.
That's exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Everyone loves guys who mope.
Yeah, exactly. That's
right.
Exactly.
That's right.
It's the majority of the movies of the 2010s.
Yeah, just mopey guys in the corner. I'm not gonna enjoy this.
Why don't girls date me?
Yeah, luckily we're at a time in our culture where we're kind of holding a mirror up to that kind of thinking, and like luckily it isn't, we're not just continuing on with the trend of like, it's just the misunderstood nice guy,
right?
I'm hoping
who's then allowed to punch, like everything is punching up to them,
exactly.
What I mean? Like that's always how it's been, where it's like nothing that I could inflict on other people would be out of bounds because I'm people laughed at me for liking math or whatever.
Exactly. I'm hoping that the success of Obsession is putting the final nail in that narrative coffin. Like I think we can finally kind of do away with this myth of like this sad boy like pining for the girl that he loves. Like I hope we can finally relay that one to rest, because it's insidious and it's like been forever, and it's one of those things that it's weird it took so long to comment on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no heroism in that kind of mopey crap.
No, exactly. You're subverting and using somebody for your own desires.
Well, there's a lot of heroism in Tommy Ward, disgruntled New Jersey postal worker.
Tommy Ward, that was it.
You know what? He should run for president. Yeah.
Oh God.
Why not?
And it's funny.
Give him
The
a shot.
movie,
Anybody can do it, apparently.
well, very, very much true.
The bar is so low,
He is overqualified.
if anything.
The movie won me back for a second. It lost me at that very end fade out because I thought for sure it was like, you should run for president. He was going to have a moment and be like, oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But then he's like, yeah, maybe. And I'm like, oh, that's lame. But then the Zarkorr song started and I was like, okay, well, I'm back on. I'm hooked again.
Literally his whole platform is just I killed Zarkorr. Like, what are your thoughts on China,
I'm
sir?
owed this.
Yes. How are you going to help the national deficit? What is your plan?
Well, if another Zarkorr shows up, he's dead meat. You know?
Oh, he's riding that Zarkorr thing into the ground. Come on, we want something different from Zarkorr.
You get a lot of mileage out of that, man. Yeah, this may not qualify as the ridiculous sublime, but it is at least like the ridiculous pleasant.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and I just wish there was a little more monster mayhem. I would have. We don't find ourselves saying this that often, but I do wish this was maybe like 7 to 10 minutes longer, and that 7 to 10 minutes all dealt in destruction of miniatures, rubber suits, and all of that fun stuff, just to kind of, balance the scales back a little bit for the two separate kind of like movies that we got, because they are one seriously outweighs the other one. And even though there's fun moments to be had, it gets a little tiresome after a while being in that world without those rubber monsters you were promised. But I don't know. I found this kind of charming and kind of enjoyed watching it.
I kind of did too.
Yeah. I was surprised.
Well, thank you, Zander, so much for being here. Truly so exciting for us, and loved having your expertise on this. I'm hoping Zarkorr winds up in the kaiju canon in your mind, at the very least.
Oh yeah.
And if anything else, we can give you one more ridiculous name to add to the list of giant killer monsters. So you have a new book out. Where can people find it? Tell us a little bit about it. I'm so excited.
Yeah. So it's a series that I've worked on all during 2025 and early 2026, called Sleep. It's published by Image Comics, and it's like kind of a werewolf or a Jekyll and Hyde type story, and it's about a guy when he falls asleep, he turns into something else and murders people and causes destruction and all that sort of stuff. But the twist, I mean, not the hook of the story is it's all told from his waking hours, and so like we never see the creature that's doing this. It's just him dealing with the aftermath over and over and over again, and kind of deciding who to tell and deciding what to do about it, and trying to stop himself from harming people. And it's kind of grim and dark, but it's also by me, so it's a little bit silly. And it's told in black and white with just spots of red, which are hints at what the sort of lore and sort of reasoning behind all of this is. And so it just came out as a hardcover and softcover from Image, and it's available wherever you get comics. You can get it online at at bookshop.org or Amazon or wherever you choose in your local comic book store. Yeah.
Oh, incredible. I'm excited to check this out. Yeah, absolutely. I am genuinely a huge fan. And it's so cool to have you. I've been foisting KAIJUMAX on all of my friends for a couple of years now.
Foist away.
I've been foisting.
Well, is it the KAIJUMAX there too? But it's like I was like, we got to stick to Zarkorr, but I want a separate 60 minutes about Chainsaw Vigilante.
Yeah,
Chainsaw Vigilante. Yeah. The comic I drew when I was 20 years old.
Oh, so good. Oh.
I mean, we haven't really. This is the closest we ever got to bringing up like the Tick on the show, which I'm sure we all have a fondness for. So it's
absolutely.
Anything in that universe, it's like, yes, please. Like,
oh yeah. What a lucky break to be able to work on it. In the Tick universe. And just do all this, all the weird superhero stuff, which weren't everywhere at that time.
No, they really weren't. Yeah. And
everybody. I mean, there'd been people doing it, but like I thought the Tick, and Ben did it particularly well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh hell yeah, I love that. And I have a pretty cool comic shop not too far from me that I like to pop into once in a while. I'm not like a collector, but I do. I'm highly suggestible when it comes to collections of things. Steve may not know this about me, listeners may not know this about me, but I do collect peanut strips.
Oh,
so
I did not know that.
I have like the majority of all of the strip collections, whether it's I I forget, someone Reinhardt Golden, like the hardcovers from the 70s, the faucet
no.
pressed ones, plus the all other ones. I mean, I have like the whole Calvin and Hobbes and some other things too. I do have a soft spot for comics. I just feel like if I decided to take up comics as a hobby, I would immediately go broke.
Oh, that's for sure true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm like,
yeah.
I'm gonna walk in there. I'll be in the neighborhood probably on this Friday, and I'm gonna pop in and take a look and see if I can find, either a paperback or hardcover of Sleep. If you're a listener, you should probably do the same, because I'm sure that if it's not that or something else Xander's worked on, you'll love it. If you like the show that we do week to week, the best way to show us is to go on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave a 5-star rating, maybe a brief review if you feel so inclined to do so. It just helps the show reach more people, and it helps us out a great deal. If you want to keep up with what we're doing on the regular, the best way to follow us is on Instagram at puppetmasters_castlefreaks. You can also follow me at _Giallo_Jared. I do a lot of personal show stuff from my personal account, I should say. We promote our day of releases in our Facebook group, on Blue Sky, I think on Threads again now, and you can always listen to the audio versions of the show on our YouTube channel, and a lot of people do. Maybe we'll add video, maybe we won't, because Steve is also incredibly busy with some other things besides being recently married as of this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well,
Steve, what else have you got going on?
Well, I'm also the host of the show Cinema Arcade. That's cinema and arcade mashed together. That is what we do. We are watching movies and playing video games based on those movies to see how they contrast, compare. Excuse me. That's actually how I came to finally watch Godzilla. We recently covered that movie with a couple of the tie-in video games for the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo. So lots of fun to dig into there. I believe when we're listening to this, we will just be wrapping up our Space Jam series. So the first 2 Space Jam movies plus Looney Tunes Back in Action as a palate cleanser. I don't know what's coming up after that, but definitely check it out, and definitely check us out next week, because you know what? We enjoyed our stay so much here on Monster Island that we picked up a timeshare, and we're going to hang out and just see what Craw the Sea Monster is up to. So we're going to follow it up. We're going to see if these guys are meant to actually be rivals in a big crossover universe, or if Craw is just eating Zarkorr's dust. We will find out. But tune in next week for that. And I think that's it.
Zarkorr!